It all
Let's
comes down to
go.
this Poisound versus Nequiz, and we're starting off with Poisound's Off the Books, which we're just looking at, versus Nequiz's
Yay! We get
Pirates
to see it here.
Onslaught. And I'll change the
Yes.
score as well, because that's not who we're seeing anymore. It's 0-0.
All right, Pirates going off from Blue Coin and Poisound here, maybe hoping for the NR matchup potentially. When you talked about that, Poisound maybe wants to place it into NR, but he's not receiving that. He's receiving a Nequiz SK on Blue Coin. So
Yeah.
we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah, and the queuing is something we've not talked about too much today, but it's really, I think, something that separates good ladder players from great tournament players. Being able to decide when to queue your decks, give yourself the best opportunity to win the series. Of course, when you win with a deck, you don't have to play with it again. And this off-the-books deck, we've seen Syndicate struggle a lot against NR. And he doesn't have the Nilfgaard deck, which also looked like a little bit worrying. So if he can get this off-the-books deck through Poisound, he's going to be probably feeling quite confident. So I do like the fact that he's queued it nice and early. And yeah, you can often get pretty good bounties against SK. Having said that, the armor could also prove to be a problem for Poisound.
The armor definitely a bit of a issue potentially for all of these bounties. Speaking of which, we're going for the slander right away. But yeah, I mean, also with the queuing, there's a lot of mind games in this. You might think, oh, this my opponent is expecting me to queue this, so I'm going to queue something else. And the other opponent might be thinking, okay, well, they're going to queue that other deck. Maybe I'm going to surprise them and play this. And then both players get a matchup that they did not really expect. We don't know, of course, if it was intended or not, but it's a really fun aspect, I think, of tournament gameplay, is that mind game. And here comes the Executioner, as Specimen would say, popping off, and he removes that ship.
That was not a very good impression, I have to say.
It was terrible. I'm
It was
sorry.
so bad.
I'll work on that. It'll be better next time. See, I start low, and then I can only be better, right? Only uphill from here.
Coral, here the order was floated, which was pretty well played, because that just means the Scald giving 4 damage removal to just clean up the Executioner. The bow also did damage it initially. Will we hear the voice line? No. Okay. That's not the voice line I'm looking for the Savvy Huckster, Sealy. We have to wait to see the other one. There's also a Mushy Truffle. I'm not going to say it. I just, if I hear it, I'm going to be very excited, okay?
I'm going to turn up my volume now and keep it listen for this one.
Someone in chat will know the voice line I'm talking. It's my favorite voice line at the moment. It's so good. Nequiz, 13 ahead, decides to continue playing with the burner. Wow, that's golds. Oh, Lord. That is discarding a gold right there. The Junod was on top of the deck. You don't mind getting rid of the Primal Savagery, but what the hell are you supposed to do here?
All of these cards are definitely good. Junod can be flexible, but it's still the one that ends up going here for Nequiz, and I can definitely see it, because I feel like these other golds are just better, but not what you want to see when you go for the Berna. Wow.
Yeah, that is not ideal, is it? And punished for having too good a hand. I think Junod was the one that has to go. You've already played 1 red ship, which is like the easiest way to set it up. Your Crack on Crate can also do it, but you're not going to be expecting that to survive. It's like a Heatwave Magnet, really, or something along those lines. So, yeah, pretty unfortunate there for Nequiz. Obviously, he was looking for a couple of bronzes. At least he found 1. At least he didn't draw 2 golds, you know?
Yeah, definitely not.
Burner's the kind of lady that...
1 is better than 2.
You can't be surprised when Burner lets you down either, really. You know, she's quite the character, so...
She is. That is true. It's kind of lore friendly. She might backstab you a little bit. Yeah, without too many spoilers. All right, Poisound getting that nice Salamandra mage off, and that means he's still in the running to compete for this round 1 really efficiently as well. I mean, we do have to see Commitment come down potentially, or you can do... All right.
Oh, the Nequiz!
Whoa!
Nequiz is popping off, mate!
Wow, I did not really expect that.
Now, the big question is, Sealy, if Nequiz didn't come out that turn, would he have risked it, right?
No, I don't think
would he have just risked the pass?
Too early. It's too early. There's too much on the line. You love to see it. That would be hilarious if one of these players would actually do it in such a high-stake scenario and pull it off. It would go into the books of history, honestly, but maybe it's a little bit too much to risk.
I mean, Listen, Vintage is saying it would be so troll, but you might know this. You would expect that he knows this matchup. You might just have to bleed to have the best chance in this matchup. It was what, 5 cards in hand, so 50% chance. Just flip a coin, mate. Burger flip. What could go wrong?
Nothing.
He didn't need to. Good boy, best boy.
Yeah.
He came out in time, so that was not a decision he had to make. But that was really exciting to see that Nequiz be the difference there.
It was definitely fun. All right, and now we're off to round 2. Here we can see Poisound's deck, I believe, or are we going into some plays immediately? We might be.
Is there a Maxi? Yeah, there's a Maxi. There she is.
That was the... Okay.
Yeah, Poisound unfortunately not able to play something like Mushy Truffle here. This is also why I was a little bit surprised to see no Beggar in Poisound's deck, just even as a one-off. Imagine you play the Truffle here, you can play a Huckster, it's only 1 carryover of coins, well 1 coin, so no carryover really. Whereas the Beggar gives you 3, okay, it's only a coin difference, but you know, it's still an option. But Poisound now deciding, is he going to bleed?
Is he going to? And yeah, judging by the coin generation here, it's definitely not that much. I mean, yeah, makes sense that there's a path here. I'm not sure that Poison could play too much into this round either. I mean, you have the leaders, but I think you need some more coins, honestly.
Yeah, and this is also what Sunset Wanderers is doing to round 2 when it's in the hand. It's just, if Syndicate was to bleed here, Sunset Wanderers comes flying out and you inevitably lose a card. If you pass, well, Sunset Wanderers is going to stay and there's still going to be a bunch of points for round 3. And it's why the card is just so insanely good, particularly in decks where you can draw cards and keep it in your hand for longer.
Definitely Skellige making use of those discards round 1, even though, of course, Berna didn't quite go for the ideal scenario for Nequiz here. But like you said, a lot of points still in round 3 with Wanderer. And hand looking pretty good otherwise. We have the Croc that's ready to come out. We have the Terror of the Seas as well, gathering that armor. And the range throw ships. A lot of armor happening for Nequiz.
Yeah, and this is where the ideal hand would have just been a Junod or something, you know, had the discards gone a little bit cleaner. So it definitely does have a big impact. But also these bronze cards in Skellige are very, very strong indeed. Gutting Slash up to 6 removal, and of course these ships can set up more armor, but also if they get armor themselves, can be worth a lot of points.
So Poisound does have access to whatever he wants to there with that decree, but what he does need to do here is he needs to set up a great bounty that he can probably trigger then with a nice freak show once it comes online, but really having to make sure these bounties go exactly right so that the coins will end up in his pocket. Not the easiest thing to do here.
Yeah, and what Royal Decree can do is it can find units, but it cannot find spells, specials, or artifacts. And there is a Mushy Truffle, I do believe, in the deck for Poisound with the Savvy Huckster. So we're not going to hear the voice line. So I'm going to have to do it at some point. Not during the game, I guess. But we could see it later if Off the Books doesn't win. So I'm now rooting for Onslaught so we get to see the Savvy Huckster voice line later on. It's just the way it is. And I have to say, Nequiz is looking in a strong position. No Siggy for Poisound as well. This is where you would sort of have expected, you know, to have seen a Siggy opener, so then you've got a lot of flexibility in your coins. Instead, having to go for a Slander and then a couple of leader charges. Crack on Crate is a great steal, though. Not muzzleable, but
not actually playing a Siggy, so that's not actually something that you would do if you're Poisound. But the Philip, on the other hand, does compensate a little bit by yoinking that Craw. Definitely a lot of points for Nequiz if it would have gone unanswered. Of course, there's Heatwave of sitting there, but maybe that Heatwave is going to come down on something tall like Wonders later. We'll see.
Yeah, and we do see the leader charge probably comboing with the muzzle to just answer this Crack on Crate, steal it back. But where's the Pella? Where is the Peller of Dreams, mate? So sad to see.
The Peller of Dreams. I loved that. Well, maybe there's going to be a Fukusia on the graveyard onto something to get rid of that little skirm that the Wanderer did pull for Nequiz, like Fukusia on a Coral, Fukusia on a Berna. And then you can see Peller that maybe Nequiz, he does play.
Yeah, and you mentioned before the game as well, this coin generation on the Syndicate deck looking a little bit suspect, and you can certainly see that coming into fruition. You don't really want to be playing a freak show and be forced to use a leader charge or two All the leader charge is now being used to generate those coins. You would love that flexibility by just having a Siggy Reuven to just play on the board early game or something like that. So definitely can see the impact and why Siggy is such a popular card. Poisound deciding not to go for it. And I mean, in fairness, so far he's still been able to answer all the threats that he needed to. He just no longer has that flexibility of leader charge.
Yep, and if the bloodthirst count does go up, Nequiz can just respond to this freak show with a cutting slash. Of course, there's the executioner as well in the hand, so there's kind of a backup for Poisound if he needs to. But again, he's not going to be spending too many of these coins because there really aren't too many to spend, so we'll see. But here comes Nequiz going for this line again with Mortvarg, and then utilizing that last leader charge to make sure that this spender is out. I mean, Off the Books does rely a lot on spenders. Maybe Poisound doesn't have a great spender in hand, and then you're quite happy sacrificing this Mortvarg just to make sure that the freak show isn't there anymore for spending.
We have seen Mortvarg being utilized in combination with the leader charge a couple of times now. Quite a flexible card, of course. Ideally a tool punish, but sometimes just getting through that armor and dealing enough damage is enough to clean up with the leader. Also, it's going to set up all that armor in hand as well for points on the Terror of the Seas and the Longships. Here comes Jax, of course, costing 1 coin less with the fact that you're playing Off the Books and also being a tribute card to try and get that King of Beggars out without any problems.
This definitely making Nequiz's Bloodthirst a little bit awkward to achieve. I mean, there's Philippa, but other than that, you have to get through armor now to get more armor on your pirates or your Terror of the Seas. So Jacques is kind of a nice way. He's boosted as well, so you can't really do much damage here on the board when you're Nequiz.
Yeah, and this is where the quality of the hands really start to shine, because for Nequiz, you could have something like a Junod, which admittedly, it would only be playing for 8 points right now, but you'd be able to probably set it up with one of these long ships. Instead, you've got a Gutting Slash, which again, it could prove to be quite good. The bronzes are great here. And of course, with the Skirm in hand, it's very likely we're going to see either Coral or Burner being played off of the Fucusia as well. The Rain can also set up some more damage. Here comes the Heat Wave on the Sunset. 12-point Heat Wave. Can't really complain with that at all.
Nope. It's not a bad one for Poisound to get, so didn't risk going down a card there in round 2, but rather thinking that, all right, the Heat Wave can be well used on the Wanderer. That's one of the things. The Wanderers is in a way free points for you, but it also does play tall, giving some value to that tall removal. Well, it still trades up just because of the value of Wanderers, but you do play tall when the rest of your deck doesn't really play tall. So it's a decent Heat Wave for Poisound.
There's 6 coins in the bank for Poisound as well. So maybe this coin generation isn't being too much of an issue. He's been able to use his leader charges flexibly as and when. It's not like a jackpot where it's just one and done. These kinds of leaders have always been really good in Gwent, where you've got that flexibility. Jackpot really has been shining recently, but it's great to see Off the Books just creeping up, obviously with the support King of Beggars offers as well. And 1 coin spent here with the Jax. Maybe Professor on this crack on crate.
Yep.
Would be a lot of points that we could see. Of course, 7 coins would be generated. So
you kind of want to take it. Like, that's a lot of coins that you potentially don't get otherwise. So taking it here just seems like a lot of, just a really, really good Professor. Setting that up to, of course, for damage with the Freak Show. Pinging it once and now getting that nice bounty from Professor.
Continuing to spend with the Jax as well. There's no Mortvarg left. But Terror of the Seas at times can be a little bit like a Heat Wave on a stick. We don't know exactly the armor count on this, but it is going to be pretty significant, and this Rain is going to be giving even more. Let's look out for where this... Oh, it's Burner Bran instead of the Coral.
She's going to make up for it.
So in Coral, of course, you'd get 2 damage from the discard, whereas with Burner, you do get more Rain by... I want to say 1 turn, because Coral's 9, Burner's 8. So plays for the same amount of points. Of course, you get to see 1 extra card though. So it does definitely make sense with the Mortvarg at the bottom of the deck.
I was going to say, I was so curious about what that card was. I looked at Mortvarg, I was like, no, he did get it in round 1, didn't he? Nope, there it is. And, Burna. Again, really?
Yeah, no, 5-point difference, of course, there. Does keep the ship over the Maxi as well. So the ship, I mean, it doesn't look like... Maybe Maxi was a better save. I'm not sure. It does have armor, the ship. I guess you could...
should play more the Maxi, though.
Yeah.
The Maxi is just a 6.
Yeah, as long as the ship isn't removed, which it looks like it's going to be safe, obviously, with the armor, so definitely makes sense. Obviously, it can give some more armor to the Terror of the Seas as well, which means even more points. Will the rain hit the Kurt here as well? Well, decides to just hit it with the ship, so that's not going to matter too much either way. Lots of damaged units down on the board, and this Jax being the main spender as well, I do wonder if this Terror of the Seas is going to just be able to remove it in one turn or not.
Yeah, we are not seeing the armor amount right now, but with all the bloodthirst going on, you can assume it's probably quite juicy on that Jacques. So let's see when that comes down.
6 coins in the bank for Poisound. He's 6 points behind. This Witch Hunter Executioner cleans up the Burner Bran. 6 coins from that bounty. Of course, it's also taken a point of damage from the Longship here. And going to spend as well with the Witch Hunter Executioner as a bleeding play. And I like that because it's just taking points away from spending with Jack. You're not having to go as tool.
Yep, and setting everything up for Zavala as well once he's ready to pull that big point swing from the deck. Nequiz, of course, still has the Truffle left, a Mighty Terror, and a Gutting Slash here. The Gutting Slash value right now is at 6. So let's see where it does end up. But here comes the Terror cleaning up that Jacques when the ship hits it really nicely there.
That was kind of disgusting.
It was a lot. That was a huge play.
And this is the big difference between finding this Terror of the Seas early or not. Like, imagine this Terror of the Seas was stuck down near the bottom with Morkvarg. Even if you draw into it late, it's just going to be so many less points. The Terror of the Seas being the key card, really, is the reason this Onslaught deck has proven to be the best SK deck by, like, a lot of pro players think. And I mean, it's not all over, though, because this is not a Junod. This is a Gutting Slash. And It's not playing for many points. Just 4 points on the Gutting Slash. Mushy Truffle is still available to be clicked, though.
It's still available to be clicked, and I gotta say, I think Nequiz did a great job at giving that Mage Assassin, Salamander Mage as little value as possible as well with the placement of armors here. But here is the big point swing, the Zavala, Frightener, and King of Beggars all down at once, and the point gap has been met. Poisound takes it very close. Oh, the Unod.
This Unod discard is
or the Morkvarg. The Morkvarg that was in
the 5 points off the Morkvarg as well. Wow. Yeah. Nequiz is going to be very upset. But Poisound, this dodgy off the book set. Listen, I'm saying it's dodgy. It was the one we looked at, but it just looks a bit worrying. I think he's going to be very, very happy to have gotten that deck out of the way. Because, you know, it takes... You can only have 1 point off of it per turn, but it's still a nice option to have. And we have more off the... Well, it's jackpot this time. It's not off the books.
Yeah.
And this is the matchup we've seen a lot so far today. And every time it has gone the way of Northern Realms. They've got absolutely wrecked around 1. They lose on even, but they somehow still pull it out of the bag. But maybe Poisound knows the lines better than the other players we've seen. Let's find out.
Yeah, maybe Nequiz can find enough control while still not spending too much and trying to keep that NR in line. And Poisound, of course, we did see where Chase, for example, had suboptimal draws, and that kind of did end up biting him then later in the game. Poisound is, of course, hoping to find what he needs, but we do see a pretty strong start. Refards and the little Siege Master, as well as Amphibious Assault in round 1. Really good cards for NR to have.
Yeah, and we're seeing this Crystal Skull being used on Letitia to get up to nice 10 points. This is where we see that difference between jackpot and off the books. If you want to answer this with a Morelsi or whatever it might be, you need to slam that leader and then it is gone. You just have the passive. Nequiz instead deciding just to play a rather passive Peach that isn't ticking yet either.
No, this is a very slow start for Nequiz. Maybe he's realizing he has to be of maybe he's thinking, you know what, NR can create this carryover at any point in the game anyway. So either deal with these students or I kind of play slowly and see how long I can stay in the game and see where that takes me rather than going all in and pushing hard with the leader, with the Mariels, like you said. But, you know, now the coin generation is starting, so we could still see Nequiz push a little bit.
Yeah, I really like this play on reflection of the Peach to come down because while the Peach didn't tick instantly, he predicted Professor would be his next play, and therefore the coins are available for the Peach to just start ticking along. We see Leticia come through, clicked as soon as both students are on the board, as is often the case. The poison then does... Yeah, the poison comes through to then answer that other student. But with something like Shani, that student is going to be come back, and the patience is going to continue to build.
Absolutely, and now their Fards, interestingly enough, doesn't really have bronzes to play from hand. It depends a little bit, I guess. So the muscle does come down for just tempo. I mean, it is a good tempo card, even though ideally you would like to steal your opponent's engine to deny their points or take something that is carryover for later. It's still a nice tempo play and a good swing. Maybe Poisound's hoping here he's not losing on even, and that's exactly what he does. He passes, and Nequiz here doesn't want the tie necessarily, so he's going to go ahead and play another card.
Yeah, it's a really interesting round one. Nequiz taking the
He
tie!
takes the tie.
Okay!
Ooh, nice. This is interesting. You're not giving alumni basically too much time to develop. Like, Poisound now just has to do it in one round. He doesn't get that extra round to enjoy the payoff. He has to draw really well now and try to also get some alumni action going. While Nequiz is saying, maybe I'll have a good enough hand to just battle this.
The game is now in a state where the winner of this round is winning the whole thing. We've essentially just ditched round 2, and we're just going straight to round 3. Of course, this is only the second round, but because they both tie, both players get half of that crown piece and now just need to win the round. And the really interesting thing for Nequiz is, can he get the King of Beggars out? And it looks like he can. He has the Salamander Mage. He has the Savola in hand as well. Definitely could have backfired for him. Poisound also, though, does have a pretty strong hand with access to Shani, Gerhardt, Chapter of Wizards. The Vengeance is going to pull both Siege Masters as well. So that's a lot of points packed in to not many cards.
And here we can see Nequiz is going to have to miss out on that Siggy. This Freak Show, Junior is just too good not to take. It does take care of that student, which will later be points for alumni. But Siggy is a card he's not going to see this game. While Poison, on the other hand, look at this, just drawing his deck out here with the double Siege Master coming online and the Zeal on their Fards. And here we go. We're seeing some action on Poison's side of the board.
So many cards! So many engines, so much thinning. What a play. Vengeance into double Siege Master, into Alumni. That's a lot all at once.
I gotta say, I respect Nequiz basically saying here that Poison might have not a great hand.
Yeah,
and he's potentially banking off of that completely. Unfortunately for Nequiz, fortunately for Poison, however, this hand is fantastic, I think, by Poison. Just a lot of solid points.
Yeah, absolutely. And does have now the Vengeance and the Shani down on the board at the same time. This Kurt is kind of interesting because I don't believe there's a great tool punish left with the Mariels. Certainly not in hand. Maybe there is in the deck. But Poison does maybe have the option to take John Natalis into a winch to really try and get this out of the range of something like Orson. Of course, Leader also offers more removal of Orson's Freak Show. But Poison does have a decision to make where he could take the winch to try and get this bounty more difficult to collect.
Yeah, there is that line, and we do see the Natalis coming online. Probably looking at that winch.
Yeah, so we've also had someone in the chat say, what a throw by Nequiz taking this pass. But it's as Seeley mentioned, like from the quiz, he might be feeling he's not in a great spot. We've seen that this is not a very good matchup. Imagine if Poison's hand is just full of bronzes. He misses the Vengeance. He gets stuck with Siege Masters or whatever it might be, you know? Like, it just seems like that's my chance maybe to win the game. You have to play to your win conditions and, you know. Unfortunately for him, Poison's hand is really strong, but it's certainly not all over. Of course, his hand, though, the quiz isn't looking too hot when you compare it to Poison's.
Yeah, we're going to see what's going to happen. Of course, the Margarita here as well come down to lock that Freak Show. But really nice bounty still coming down here for the Freak Show, and also taking away that, sweeping away that Alumni, getting it out of here, and pretty impressive point swing.
Yeah, does need to be careful of his coin count. With no leader left, of course, needing to make sure you can get your King of Beggars through with your tribute on Savola and your tribute on to the Salamander Mage, as I don't believe he has played any tributes up to this point. He used the Morelsi, but used it as the deploy. So does need to be careful of that. Here comes Margarita dealing with Horson's Freak Show.
Yep, really nice aligning here for the Mage Assassin, though. Nicely able to utilize that tribute and do a whole heap of damage. 6 points on all of these little guys on the front row of Poisound's board.
Here does come the Salamander Mage, dealing with all the soldiers in the front row. There's only one crew card, and that is a ranged locked card anyway, so we weren't going to see any crew pocket action. But why not just deal with the soldiers with the Salamander Mage? Of course, this is also somewhat of an engine. You're going to be getting some extra coins on your tribute card plays, so it is a card that you might just want to be removing if you are Poisound here.
And here comes Poisound's Eastrid. Now it's kind of safe. It's really looking to just make sure that Poisound's hand is as good as it can be. So he's going to be chilling there for a little bit, helping Poisound out, getting rid of that range locked order ability card. It's just like we saw one that Nequiz is kind of stuck with this Jackal, as well as the special card there. Forget what it's called.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting when Poisound decides to click this Istrid. Off the rune word has the option of the Spellweaver, also has the option of the Alumni, which he decides to take. Nequiz has to obviously have the Shakedown, some sort of like profit card in order to pay the tribute. So Poisound probably has quite good insight over the hand state. It's not going to be something like a Horson or anything like that. Like you need something to profit to get to Savola. Of course, Istrid, if it draws any specials, it's going to be points for the card, for Istrid itself. So the longer you wait, the better chance that you get more points off Istrid.
Now we can decide what to do here. Playing the Gerhardt, we know, I mean, Poisound doesn't know, but he can definitely suspect that the last card there is Savala, so he's just playing accordingly. And that's the mage that he finds. Not amazing.
Yeah, and Poisound also had the luxury to just float this Gerhardt if he wanted to, because you know the last card's going to be Savola at this point. But the practice makes perfect is so good, he just doesn't even want to float it. He just plays it for value on deploy. So it's going to be all eyes on Istrid, of course. Decision for Nequiz if he wants to spend with the Jackal to make use of the Horde. He's just probably making sure there aren't any tool punishers left or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then
not holding this Gerhardt as a threat is definitely making that possible now. Nequiz being able to just go all in on the point value. And yeah. Is there any card that can make it for Poisound here?
I'm not so sure there is. I mean, Istrid can hit specials, which is going to give him some extra points. Shani as well is now available. That could maybe tip the balance in the favor of Poisound. Has to go for the Alumni. Now let's see. The Pella, not interested. Selkirk, we only have one Zeal. That's also not going to be too great. The practice makes perfect. Are probably the best here.
Potentially, yeah. Wow.
Goes for the Selkirk.
This is such a close game, but that's a big Selkirk that he managed to pull here. Eastrid does have it. And here comes the giant duel. Just absolutely huge. What a game, Speci. I think this just, wow. Alumni absolutely smashed it again, but Nequiz really going for a good strategy here, hoping that he can just put enough points on the board in a short amount of time and that NR doesn't draw enough. But that Eastrid was ready to make sure that those draws were going to be perfect regardless. It's going to be an interesting show. And we see Skellige versus Skellige mirror action.
Okay, so the mirror Nequiz fancies on this coin. He only has one red coin, so he's going to try and pick the deck that he's made, wants to make sure he plays a particular deck on red coin, because while he's disadvantaged in the series, he's 2 games down, he does have that luxury of choosing what matchups take place on which coin. So decides he likes the look of this mirror on the blue coin, and that makes a lot of sense because it's kind of engine focus gameplay, not massively, but there's things like the ships and stuff like that. Obviously the Mask of Ouroboros as well is a really, really strong stratagem. In fact, my friend Shin Miri said it's the best stratagem in the game, because there's exclamation mark Shin Miri is a very good Shin Miri quote from my chat recently. Oh no, not that one. There's another one somewhere.
That is a classic, though. That one is a classic. But yeah, you're right. No, this stratagem does provide a little bit of damage reach if you happen to draw something like Coral. It also puts tempo on the board and really makes sure you thin a card in round 1, you have better odds at seeing yourself later. Just all around a good value on that mask.
Yeah, and we've seen as well with Morkvar getting stuck at the bottom of the deck in the previous series that that one card draw can make all the difference, really. So Mask of Ouroboros, fantastic card. Obviously, Maxi being used here. Quite a lot of golds near the top. Morkvarg closer to the bottom. Morkvarg in this matchup, well, doesn't look fantastic at first glance because there's a lot of cards that don't look at all. There is a Sunset Wanderers. And we've also seen Morkvarg being able to just tear through armor as well, which can definitely be quite important in this matchup, maybe to deal with a ship and then use a leader charge. I know that's a play we've seen a lot of times today, Sealy.
That is absolutely right. Yeah, Nequiz here sitting with his Terror of the Seas in hand. Very happy. Poisound, on the other hand, hasn't seen it yet. I'm looking at the main differences here between these lists, and I believe that the main difference is that Nequiz is not running a Heatwave, rather that U-Nod that we saw so unfortunately discarded in game number 1. And then Poisound, on the other hand, does run the Heatwave for a little bit of tall removal. Can play for some points on something like Wanderers. We'll see. But those are kind of the main differences. Otherwise, these decks are looking quite similar. So this is a very, very tight race.
Yeah, you've got to say in this mirror matchup, you've got to be the person with the Junod would be who you'd favor. Having said that, Crack on Crate can be very difficult to deal with because of his armor. So if you can get enough armor on this Crack on Crate, maybe you can end up making him stick against a player that doesn't play Heatwave.
All right, pulling that Morkvarg from there with the Scald. And holding on to that as we move on to the next rounds, of course. Now, Poisound has kind of shown that he's not intending on bleeding. He's just gonna hope to draw all the cards he needs for round 3.
Yeah, so we are in the losers bracket final. So the winner of this is in open number 1. Cam's already in open number 1 after he won the winners bracket 3-2 in the final match against Nequiz. Poisound coming from the losers bracket. We saw him beat Chase 3-2. But Nequiz looking in a pretty good position, having won round 1, I'd say. Well, losing round 1, Poisound, the pressure sort of on him to make the decisions. This Mushy Truffle is just a card you want to be playing exactly at this moment. Both players do have access to it for that 6 points of carryover. Also, you can use it to protect some engines, so it could be even better than the 6 points of raw value.
Let's see here. Nequiz is pretty much missing the Morkvarg. Other than that, I think he's so far, honestly, drawn everything he's needed. Poisound, on the other hand, let's see. He does have the Fukusia this time. Hasn't always find that in his Skellige games today. But here it is, along with the double ship. Let's see if both of those are keepers or not. Here comes a Berna. Not an unfortunate discard at this time.
Yeah, I think with the Morkvarg coming into hand now, we know Morkvarg was quite low in the deck. I do wonder if the quiz shuffled. I'm not certain, but it does seem like he's drawn a lot of cards with the Maxi, that is. The Maxi showed lots of gods in the top, Morkvarg closer to the bottom, but he's got access to Morkvarg now, which is definitely a card you're going to want to have because of the Sunset. And let's just see how each player draws. Primal Savagery, Gutting Slash, couple of Raiders up top, or Invaders I think they're called. There's Burner as well.
All right, and I think we haven't seen Muzzle. There is the Heatwave, so a pretty efficient way of dealing with the Croc, unless you want to go for something like Leader, Charges, and Muzzle, and play a Peller on top of that, as we actually did see happen in one of these games, I believe. But yeah, no Muzzle, I think, for Poisound.
Yeah, and Nequiz having to open with different plays here isn't maybe ideal. He has Crack on Crate. He also has this half-through, which is proactive, the ship, potentially. Seems to have found all the cards he could really have hoped for.
Yeah.
Does go for this Crack on Crate, which can give armor to the Terror of the Seas, the Morkvarg, and the ship. Particularly these two ships are really turning this armor into points if they're not answered. And there's the Heatwave, a nice clean answer to Crack and Crate. It does trade up to Heatwave though, because again, that armor is turning into points. But if you leave that Crack down on the board for a long time, things can get really sticky.
Absolutely. Now, looking for another proactive play here, there is a ship that you can go for. There is the Havfrue, of course, as well. Coming down here, at a solid 6 points. Now, Poisound's going to answer. He wants to get these ships out of the way. He wants them to start ticking. And, you know, Nequiz knows that Poisound has them, so he doesn't want to play too much into them. So playing that Havfrue now makes a lot of sense while it doesn't get hit by that on-crate ship. And there is the Muzzle. coming down from Nequiz. Pretty good muzzle target there.
Yeah, you can see why the ships are so difficult to deal with when they have all this armor, but Muzzle does not care about armor. Can just steal that. Of course, it does lock it as well, so the ship isn't going to work for Nequiz, but still 8 points of tempo while also answering an engine.
You could have maybe found a Peller there with the Sunset Wonder.
True.
All right, here comes the Wonders and pulls into Morkborg. Definitely a solid card for Poisound to find right now, as it does rip right through that Sunset Wonder, unfortunately.
I could be mistaken, but I do believe Poisound is still looking for this Crack on Crate in his deck. And this is a card we talked about against Nequiz, where he doesn't play the Heat Wave. A lot of armor on that Crack on Crate could have been a bit of a game changer to protect it from things like Junod. Without the armor, though, it's going to be a struggle to keep that card alive. And that could maybe shift the balance of this game in Nequiz's favor.
Let's see what happens, as Nequiz right now is focusing on putting even more ships on the board. One of them, of course, is locked, but better play this second ship as early as possible for it to take as many times as possible, getting maximum armor on that Terror of the Seas. It's definitely not going to be a bad finishing play to go for.
Yeah, so we've had some people in the chat asking about King Bran. There is a version that you can play King Bran in, where you go Devotion, you play Skjordal in that deck, Harold the Cripple. Lots of people last season were still playing that, but then sort of shifted more towards this non-Devotion version. Sunset Wanderers probably being the biggest payoff, but particularly this season, you also get that Muzzle as well, which really fits the theme of the deck very nicely.
And Truffle, as we saw both players really being able to enjoy this 6 points carryover and engine protection potentially in round 3 as well. And Sunset Wanderers does protect you a lot from that bleed, potentially. So yeah, non-Devotion, I think, might even be the way to go for these Onslaught decks. At least our players would agree, I think, in the qualifier weekend, in the tournament setting.
Yeah, the only real ships you get huge value off and pirates are these long ships at the back and the Terror of the Seas. Of course, it can make your engines more difficult to be answered with all your pirates, but you don't really need to go all in on the pirates and the ships. You can just have lots of mid-rangey cards like Mushy Truffle as well, and then sort of go from there. But it's a tight game. 4 points in it at the moment. Both players have Truffle down on the board.
Very tight.
All sorts going on. Terror of the Seas in hand for both as well. Poisound is 4 points ahead and still has a card to play, though. So you'd say he's in the strongest position. But Nequiz's hand is looking very hot with this Morkvarg still ready to deal with Sunset Wanderers.
So, no Kra, but there is a Muzzle that can still play for a decent amount of points here, taking away some engine value from Nequiz's side of the board and making it your own. But yeah, Kra unfortunately is sleeping. So in terms of like hand quality, Nequiz definitely drew a little bit better here than Poisound, but the points are on the board and the point gap's getting bigger and bigger in Poisound's favor right now.
Yeah, for Poisound, you've got to be happy to see that Skirm and the Muzzle. While the Crack on Crate also could have been great, it wasn't going to come through with any armor, so it might have been a struggle to get that to stick. And it's just 3 cards left for Nequiz, but he does still have some really huge plays with Fukusia, with the Morkvarg onto this 13-point Sunset, and goodness only knows how much armor is on this Terror of the Seas. It is going to be a very thick ship, if that's even a thing.
It became a thing now. I think Nequiz made it a thing. I'm convinced that this is a very thick one. So let's find out, as Nequiz plays a lot of expensive cards, a lot of provisions, while Poisound, on the other hand, does have to play double of these ranged ships here, not going to make the point swing too big. Of course, Muzzle has a nice 6 power target now. There's Unod, there's still the ranged row ship. If you want to avoid even more armor on the Terror of the Seas, you can go ahead and steal that.
Yeah, the ship is definitely a tempting Muzzle, but you'd ideally have taken that when it had a little bit more armor, but of course it was drawn with burner, so you weren't able to do that. We'll have to see what is gone for Fukusia. Just going for that Halfer a little bit later than you'd like, ideally, because the Fukusia onto Halfer is so much rain. The game is going to end before all this rain can be developed, though.
Exactly, but nice rain on the front row. Poisound can't place his armored ships there to negate some of those rain pings. I mean, Terror of the Seas can go there, but not these ranged row locked ones. So the rain is still going to hit for a little bit of extra points for Nequiz.
And it looks like there's a massive gap. But again, this Morkvarg and Terror of the Seas could be humongous. You can't really complain about the muzzle either, though. But you have lost some muzzle points with Yunod taking some damage. So a little bit surprised to see that Yunod not being snapped up with that muzzle a little bit sooner before it took some damage. I suppose the damage it takes also does give a point of armor, though, to the Terror of the Seas.
Yeah. That is true. Still holding on to make sure you get the best possible muzzle. Maybe Nequiz can play around it a little bit as well. He does have access to the truffle. So maybe then Poisound will be left with a 5-point muzzle. We'll see. But 11 points of armor. 11 points, but not really a target for all of those 11 points to be utilized perfectly for Nequiz.
Yeah, I guess the muzzle on the Morkvarg is a tempting option here because you could pull it into that front row. It might just tank a little bit of that rain damage with the armor. That is, in fact, what Poisound goes for. Will the rain hit either of the Morkvargs? Will it hit both? Will it hit none? Let's find out.
The Morkvargs. There's actually 3 Morkvargs right now sitting on the melee row, so I'm pretty sure it's going to hit some of them.
I didn't actually catch exactly what the rain hit there, I have to confess. There's only 8 armor on one ship, 11 on the other, but it doesn't make a huge difference because 8 is just enough to clean up this half-through, which is the tallest card, and 11, well, it can only deal 6 damage as well, so...
There it is. The truffle still unused. So Nequiz, of course, doesn't want to give that terror all the value in the world. He knows that is the last card, or can at least suspect it. And double Morkvarg armor got hit there by the rain this time around. And Poisound finishing it off with the Terror of the Seas.
Terror of the Seas comes through, cleans up, and Poisound 3-0. He's in Gwent Open number 2. He came from the losers bracket. Nequiz so close against Cams, but Poisound wipes the floor with him. And that was a quick one to end the day, Sealy. Congratulations to Poisound. He is in Gwent Open number 1.